again from UnrealTech.net, a division of BlenderTek.com. Are we sick of widgets yet? I sure am. So I thought let's change back to do some more fun stuff. Let's blueprint some realistic replicated weapons. By that I mean guns that have ballistics, friendly fire headshots, weapon modifications, and yet can be fully networked and work in first and third person modes, can be used on vehicles, which I'd love to add in as soon as possible, and stuff like that. So open your project and remember, create your way. Now, our weapons are going to have about a bajillion variables and functions and such in the end, since weapons are so complicated to create and network properly. But we might as well knock off as much as we can here. So in our blueprints folder, let's create a new folder. Let's call this weapons. I'm gonna change inventory main to yellow since that'll be ongoing. We'll switch back and forth, and I'm gonna change weapons to green since that is what we are currently working on. So let's create a base class. Just like everything else, we want total inheritance. So let's create a blueprint class of type actor. Let's call this BP underscore weapon base. And let's open that up. So let's start with the easy stuff. Let's start with the easiest stuff of the replication. That is just setting the simple replication information. So we want it to always be relevant. That is, when a shot is fired, we want to make sure we know exactly where or what it hit. So we want it to always be relevant. We want it to we want its movement to be replicated. We obviously want to see the guns moving. We want use owner relevancy. That way we know who owns the gun essentially, and of course we want to make sure that it replicates, and we want to up its priority a little bit. So something like between 1.25 and 1.75 is good. So I'm gonna go about 1.5. So about 50% more relevant than, say, just a character moving. That's because the weapons are obviously going to be one of the more important things, and so we want them to have the highest priority possible. Well, not the highest, but a higher priority than most other things. So that's the basics, and by basics I mean absolutely basics. So what we're going to need is we're going to delete the default scene root, or maybe you can't do that in 4.10 anymore. Oh, I think you have to add something first nowadays. We're gonna want a skeletal mesh, and this is gonna be for our third person. So when we have a third person setup, we're gonna want to show that mesh. We're gonna want a first person mesh, and I don't have, well, I do, but I'll be providing all the meshes for this project. And we're gonna need a capsule component, capsule collision component, which is gonna be our interaction. We'll just say our interaction component. Oh, we'll just say interaction. Good enough. And that should work just like that. So they're all parented to the third person mesh. And now we want our weapons to be able to be picked up. So if someone dies, they drop their weapon, and we want to be able to pick up weapons and ammo and such like that. So we're going to need a blueprint interface to be able to share that functionality between all of these classes that we're going to have to create for all these weapons. So what I suggest is, actually in our inventory we created our interfaces there. This is going to be a general interface hover, so I'm going to put it, actually, yeah, I'm going to create a new folder inside of blueprints called interfaces underscore general. Where'd you go? There you are. And I'm going to set that to orange since it's going to be in use but kind of just general back and forth once in a while. And we're going to want to create a blueprint interface. So this will be BPI pickupable items, or we'll just say pickupable things. So let's open that up, and this one's a pretty easy one, so let's just knock it out really easy because we're going to need the functionality in our weapon. I'm just going to save while we're at it. So let's do the first one, which is obviously is item pickupable. And so we're going to want a new, actually, since we have a boolean, let's go to our output and we'll go B is pickupable. And our input is going to be our BP player. Ooh, come on, BP underscore player, or rather BP base character. There we are. It's been a while since we've worked on him. He's going to be the interacting pawn. So the pawn interacting with a pickup. We're going to want an actual pickup function. So let's add one called pickup. And this one is going to be exactly the same. So this will be the exact same thing, interacting pawn, and be picked up. We're gonna want set item focused, and that will have our interacting pawn, and it'll also have an input boolean. B is focused. Oops. B is focused. We're gonna have tooltips for all of our items. You know, how much ammo or what kind of item is this? Like when you hover over an item, it'll say like AK-47 or whatever. So we're gonna need a input BP base character reference, and that will be the owning pawn, and then we'll want to output a text, which will be the actual tooltip. Whoops, I didn't name this function. This should be get tooltip. And then lastly, we'll want one more function called is focusable. Is item focusable. Some items we don't want to be focusable. So that'll again have a BP base, BP base character reference, owning pawn, and an output boolean. B is focusable. B is focusable. So let's look over this here. Ooh, that B picked up should be a boolean there on pickup. Other than that, I think we're good. So let's compile and save, and let's add that to our base weapon here, our weapon base blueprint. Let's go to class settings and let's add our BPI pickupable things. So as you can see, now we have all these interfaces. So while they're there, we might as well set them up, because we're going to be using them over and over. We could either start with functions or there, but we're going to be using these within functions, and functions are going to be in there, so we might as well start with them. So let's do is item focusable first, I guess. So this one's actually pretty easy. So what we're going to want to do is add a variable called current state, and this is the current state of the weapon, which is going to be needed to be created. So let's go to our weapons and let's create a new enum, an enumeration called e_weapon state. And a weapon can have a lot of states, and we might need to add new states, so that's why we want things to be as procedural as possible. So obviously, what's the most simple? Idle. Your weapon is idle. Your weapon is firing. You are reloading. You are equipping an item. For miniguns or heavy machine guns on helicopters and stuff like that, your weapon is winding up, and inversely winding down. And obviously you have wound up fully. You could be holstering a weapon. Whoops. You could be holstering a weapon. Your weapon could be holstered. You could be throwing your weapon down on the ground or at someone. And you could have dropped your weapon. And there's probably some more we'll add, but we'll start there with the basics. So we want to check here, is item focusable? And all we want to check is current state. Let's set that, of course, first of all, what do we call that? Weapon state? Yeah, weapon state. And we want that to be transient. We want that to be 0 filled to load. So let's compile, and by default we want it to be dropped. So we want to check if current state is equal, double equal, comparison, enum to dropped. If it is, then it's focusable. So that is that. Pretty easy. Next we can do get tooltip. This one is a little bit more complicated. So let's drag this out. And we're going to want to do a select. And our wild card is going to be a Boolean, but we need to create a function for that. So first I'm going to create the select option 0 and option 1. And those are going to be based off of all sorts of things. First of all, we're going to need a weapon display name. So let's create a variable called display name. And this is going to be of type text. It's going to be editable. And I'm going to hit F7 to compile. Let's give it a default name of just weapon base. And we should start categorizing things because we're really going to need it. So this will be config, and this will be GUI based. Alright, so let's bring out our display name, and actually we should probably, while we're at it, categorize current state. That'll be fine on its own, because we're gonna need it a lot, so we can just leave it there. Pretty happy with that. So yeah, let's take display name. I'm gonna actually drag this way back. We're gonna need way more room. And let's do a format text twice. Actually, we need to undo that. So what we want is press E, or rather we should have avoided Because what if we want to change, or what if we change the buttons in configuration when we get to that point? So press interaction button in curly brackets. If you've never used a format text node before, putting something in curly brackets creates a pin that replaces that whole curly brackets and what's within it with whatever is coming from variable. To pick up a weapon name, like so. Let's plug that into option 0, and option 1 will be you already have weapon name in your in your inventory. Because our weapon system, we're gonna want to work with our inventory setup basically through and through. So display name obviously goes into weapon name, like so. And interact button here, we're gonna have to go interact button. Let's do a select. And let's just set it to a Boolean for now. And let's set it to false and E, and later let's leave ourselves a to-do note. Maybe I shouldn't do it like that. Did I screw it up now? I totally did. Select. So index will be Boolean. We'll do false for now, which is E. And then we'll just leave ourselves a little note here that says to do gamepad slash keyboard, or to do gamepad check. Obviously it's not going to be E if they're using a gamepad. It would be some sort of other interaction button. So that'll just be a polished thing. It'll say E otherwise all of the other times. Next up, so that is that. Now we're gonna need to get a little more fancy. Let's move this over. We're gonna need more room yet. So let's get a reference to self, and let's get our class. No, come on. There we go, get class. I don't know why they did that without a space, but I'm sure there's good reason for it. And then we want to cast to ourselves, like so. And we need to create a function on our character. So I'm just gonna F7 to compile and save, since that wasn't successful. Let's go to blueprints. Let's go to our character. And I don't believe we created that because we didn't deal with any weapons. I'm just gonna check quickly. Owning pawn, weapon. No. Alright, so on our base character, we're going to need to create a function that's not all that fun to make. It's because blueprints aren't fully set up the way they should be in a programming sense, but it's not easy, obviously, to create a visual programming language that's perfect. So that's the reason for this function. So let's create it. It's called has weapon of type, and we're gonna want an input of type BP base, or sorry, weapon base reference or class, sorry. This will be weapon class to test, weapon class, test weapon class. Oops, testy weapon class, not so right. Then we want output, which will be a boolean b does have weapon, and also a BP weapon base reference, regular reference, which is the weapon. So I'm just gonna disconnect that because this is gonna be all over the place. We're gonna need some variables first. And we should probably throw this into a category. Let's throw it in, what do we have here? Let's throw it into the info category, like so. It also is pure and constant. Let's compile what we can. Alrighty. Save what we can. And so yeah, let's start adding variables here. So we're gonna have our currently equipped weapon. I'm just gonna go wep for short. And this is gonna be of type BP weapon base reference. It's gonna be a rep notify for replication. We want it to be transient, 0 filled at load. We don't need any events going on right now. So there's that one. We can basically duplicate that one. So just right click, duplicate, and this one will be our primary web. Actually, to keep this organized, I should go web equip web primary none rep notify. That's a little bug there where I don't think it refreshes. Nope, so you have to go back when you make a change and rep notify to have it. Oh great, now it's bugged out. Delete that one. Oh, apparently you can delete rep notify functions. Oh, it goes back to replicated. Interesting. That must be a 410 change. So yeah, set those back to rep notify. It's all the same. We're gonna have a secondary weapon that's exactly the same. So just duplicate web primary. This is secondary. And we'll change it to replicated, then rep notify, and we should have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. We're gonna have a knife, obviously, or some other type of melee weapons. So we can duplicate that again. We can go wep melee, and we'll go none rep notify, and we'll have a class special. So let's duplicate it one last time, and this will be special class. Let's go special, or class specific, or whatever you want to call it. And this will be rep notify as well. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, and I totally should have. Isn't there a way to like mass change categories? I can't remember. We should put this into a category, which we'll call weapon. Let's go weapons. Right, you can drag it, that's right. That's the fastest way. Alright, perfect. So what we need to do here is basically a big nested branch where we check if classes are equal to the current weapon in each of these variables, whatever they point to. So if we go into a branch, its condition is a double equal. Actually, I guess we need something first of all. So yeah, let's make this easy on ourselves. Let's go wep equipped. Let's go wep primary. Let's go wep secondary. Let's go wep melee. Let's go wep special. And we'll need 5 branches to go with that. So let's go branch. Well, maybe not that far. Branch, branch. It probably doesn't need to be that far away. Branch. And we're going to also need a local variable, which is going to be our final weapon out. So let's add a local variable called L_wep out, or weapon out. And this will be of type BP weapon base. Perfect, all is good. So we'll want to set that after all of these on the true instance. Actually, I guess I should have just done delete all those branches because we'll make this easy on ourselves. Like this, paste, 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 and those all go to the output. Like so. And then we do one last setup where we take out our local variable weapon out, and that is the weapon. And we want to do an is valid check though first. And we want the pure version. And that makes sure that we do indeed have that weapon on us somewhere, whether it's equipped or it's primary or so on and so forth. All right, so that's all the trues. All the falses obviously branch into the next one. And the last false also goes up to the top there. All right, and these all connect to here. And then our condition is we check if they are equal, and we do a, first of all, we have to do a get class. Damn, I should have left more room. Son of a gun. So let's take these way over. I'll just copy get class. And so what we need to do is check if the classes are the same. So we'll reroute to there, and to there, and to there. It's getting kind of tight. Oops. And to there. one of the uglier functions I've done, but I'm not going to waste too much time on it. So we just do a double equal. However, that's backwards, so I'm gonna have to remember to do it the other way. Is the class equal to that? And that is our condition. So let's copy that and paste one up here and connect the dots. Come on. You just need to do that for every single one. There's no macro you could set up to make this easier. We will create some macros, however, for when you need nested branches in certain situations. Branch sequences. All right, I think I got that. Yeah. All right, cool. If not, we'll probably never notice. So all this crap here, what it does, comment is checks if the input weapon class is the same as a weapon the player is currently holding. Alright, so we gave that a category, gave those categories, good enough for now. Compile and save. Let's go back to our weapon base. So now we can go off of owning pawn and we can do has weapon of type. Test weapon class is our BP weapon base. Perfect. And then the has weapon can now go into the actual index like so. And I think we're good to go as far as I know. Compile and save. So let's do pickup next. This one's simple enough. It requires another function though. So first of all, we want to check if the player is valid. And we're gonna need that guy again, so might as well rewrote him. So let's see what's easiest. We're gonna need a reference to self. We're gonna need a variable, a local variable that is L underscore was picked up, which is of type Boolean. And if it is valid, we're gonna want to set that after another function to true. And let's see, let's take our return node here. After that, we output that local variable, connect these up, and this goes to is not valid. So let's bring that down here. Cool. All right, so if it is valid, however, we need to actually pick up the weapon. So that goes back again to our player. I don't know why I closed it. Our BP base character. So in our BP base character, let's add a function called pickup weapon. And we're gonna have pickup item as well in the future. So let's create a new variable, which will be of type BP weapon base. This will be weapon on the ground. And we also want to set this category to we set it to weapons. Yeah, this will be weapons. What else? Yeah, that should be good enough. So what we need to do is, first of all, we check if the weapon on the ground is valid. And we're gonna need this as well, so might as well reroute it. We're gonna need it all over the place. If it is valid, and this is where I was talking about some of those helpful macros. So let's actually, yeah, it's in BPM helper macros. So let's open that up. So what we're gonna create first is called a to and sequence. So this takes two booleans and checks if they're true or false. So it needs, let's see here, what do we get? We get a boolean first, so let's change that to execution. So we have execute, and then we need true. So are they both true or are they both false? And this will help us in the future because we're going to need like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these. So it saves a lot of work in the end. And we'll need some booleans. We'll need B is true if we need obviously a boolean to work off of. And we'll want B in 1 and B in 2. So the way this works is with local variables. So first of all, we start off with a branch and we check the first one. And then we go to another branch and we check the second one. If it's true, we go into the second one. If it's false, we need to, first of all, we need to create a local boolean. Let's give ourselves lots of room here because it can get kind of messy. Then we want to assign it a value, and the value we want to assign is make literal bool, which will be true, and we're also going to want a false. We're going to want to do an assign on that as well, and that will be the false, and the variable is our local boolean, and we also output the local boolean to be is true, and false comes from the bottom assign and true comes from the top assign. So we assign true only if, you can see it going here, if this one's true and this one's true. Otherwise the rest all go to false. So if this one's false, we automatically assign it to false. If this one's false, we automatically assign it to false, and there we have it. You can see obviously how that could get a lot more complicated when you need to do it like 7 times. And you can see how this can save you a lot of time when you're using this all the time. So let's save that. Go back to our base character and we can use that. So if it is valid, we're gonna wanna do our to and sequence. Let's see if I make some more room here. Let me get myself a widescreen monitor. Anyways, so first thing we're gonna want to do, I guess, is well, let's take in our equipped weapon, and we're gonna want want to check if it's valid purely, the pure version. And what else can we do without going out of this? I don't think anything. So let's go back to our weapon base, compile and save before the so, and we're going to want to add a variable, but we're going to need to create that variable a enum. So if we go to our weapons folder, let's go blueprints, enumeration, e underscore wep inventory slot. So what slot is it in? And this works exactly the same way as we just set it up. And we're gonna set up a screen to actually drag and drop weapons onto our player in the same way. So I think we had like 5 or 6. We have we'll need none, obviously, and melee, secondary, primary, and special, which I totally think I spelled wrong. So save that. Then let's go into our weapon base, and we just need to simply add a variable, which will be slot type. We'll go inv slot type, so we know it's for our inventory, and it'll be of type e weapon. Whoops, e wep inventory slot. Perfect. It'll be editable. Its category will be config, and by default we want it to be primary. So compile that, send save, and then we can go back to our base character, and now we can bring out its get inv slot type, and we want to take the weapon on the ground and get its inv slot type, and we want to check if they are equal to each other. Not equal, enum equal byte, that is. And so that is our two Boolean sequences for R2 and sequence. Yeah, that's about all we can do without creating more functions, so we might as well compile and save right now. So let's create a new function we're gonna need on our character called set holstered weapon. This is gonna be in the weapons category. And we're gonna need an input of BP weapon base called weapon. We're gonna need 2 booleans. The first one will be b destroy existing weapon, and the other one will be b drop existing weapon. Like so. So the first thing we do again is we check if our weapon's valid. And we're gonna need that variable or that pin again, so we'll do a reroute. We're gonna need these, so we may as well reroute them. Just keep everything nice and clean. Perfect, I like it. So we'll take our base weapon and we'll get its slot type. And we can't, we're gonna need more functions yet. So let's create, because I don't think we created that one. I can't remember. Nope, we're doing setting. We also need a getter. So create a new function called get holstered weapon. This is going to be a pure function. It's going to be in the weapons category. Ooh, I totally spelled that wrong. Although it didn't care. Interesting. It's going to be pure. Oh, I already set that. Perfect. It's going to have an input of e underscore weapon inventory slot, which will be our inv slot, and it'll have an output of BP base weapon base reference. So this will be the weapon. So what we do here is create a mess. We take the return node and we do a select. And the index is the inventory slot. As you can see, that doesn't give us a lot of room unless you edit your options. So none is fine, but we need to connect all these up. So web melee goes to melee, web secondary goes to secondary, web primary goes to primary, and special goes to special, like so. Yeah, so compile and save. We can close that one. And so now we can go back to our setter and we can go and take our im slot type and we can get holstered weapon. We want to check if that is valid in the pure way and take its return value and do an AND boolean. And we want to check if the weapon is not equal, that's an exclamation mark, equal to the weapon in. So that would be this one. Maybe I'll go up. Maybe that's a bad idea, I don't know. Something like that. If it is valid, it goes into a branch down the line. Let's see, did I line that up? Oh, bam. And that's its condition. Let's see, can we bring this up? Keep it clean. Nah, whatever. I can suck all this back though. If it's not valid, we don't do anything. So what we're doing here, this branch, is basically we're checking if a newly holstered weapon is different than the existing weapon, or if the existing weapon even exists. My spelling again, of course, absolutely perfect. Then we go into a branch. If true, and our condition is going to be, if we go all the way back here, to B destroy existing weapon. Line that up. So basically this is destroy all, which goes into another branch if false. Oops. And its condition will be drop all. So that plugs into the drop existing weapons Boolean. And so if we destroy all, and if that's true, then we destroy actor, and its target is going to be the holstered weapon we got. So let's reroute that probably up. Good enough. All right, and drop all. What we do is then we drop holstered weapons, so we're gonna need another function. This one's easy, at least, because I don't think we created that one. Just search for drop. Nope. So create a function called drop holstered weapon. This will be category weapons. It takes in the same one, the e-wep inventory slots. This will be inv slot, and that is all. And so what we do is we take our inv slot and we get holstered weapon. Then we check if that's valid. And if it is, we need to create another function that we're going to need to use a few times. So let's rewrote that. Let's save this. Let's go back to our weapon base, and we're going to need to create another 400 functions. So let's create a function called onThrowFinished. So this is when you throw a weapon to the ground, or if it happens to hit someone, then it might just cause some damage. Category is going to be events. And so this goes into a branch. And we take current state, and we make sure it's not equal enum to dropped as the condition. If true, we need to notify all clients of drop. So I'm going to go to the event graph, and I'm going to create a new custom event called notify all clients of weapon drop. And this is going to be multicast and most definitely reliable. And so what we do here is we do a switch has authority, a switch auth. And on the remote, what we do is we set current state. Set current state to dropped. And then we set the weapon to ragdoll, so we enable physics on the weapon. So set ragdoll, aka enable physics. This takes in an input, a boolean, which is be enabled. This will be mechanics, so like weapon mechanics. So that goes into a branch. And so that is the condition. And that also goes into, I'm going to create a reroute here into a set actor enable collision. So we call this, and if we set that to true, then that means we're enabling collision on this actor, our weapon. If false, then we do the same thing, but we just set the collision to false, like so. And then we take our third person mesh and we set simulate physics to false here. And up here, we're going to set it to true. But we need to do some other things first, which is we need to set collision. I can never spell that. Set collision enabled. And we set it to collision enabled for both query and physics. And then we set the collision object type. So I'm going to reroute from here. See if I can straighten all this out here. So set object type collision. There we go. If I just don't type collision, I can get it. And I want to set it to a physics body. And then we set simulate physics to true. Like so. So, compile, save. Now we can close that and we can come back to here. Or no, we were on the event graph, right? See, I'm starting to get lost. So after that, we set ragdoll on the weapon, set it to enabled, and then we need to reset its state. So we create another function called reset state, and this will be on a weapon state, so that'll be its category. We need some variables, so we're gonna need a variable called b. Whoops, I missed. B is holstered, and that'll be a boolean, obviously, and default false, but it needs to be transient. And then the same thing for pending. So just duplicate it. B is pending holster. And the same thing for pending equip. B is pending equip. And the same thing, lastly, duplicate. B is pending throw. Alright, so we need to set all of those to false. So, set is holstered, set is pending holster, set is pending equip, set is pending throw. Connect them up. So we're resetting its state completely. And after we do all that, then we're gonna need one more variable called on equip finished timer handle, and this can be of type timer handle. Yeah, that should be fine just the way it is. And we need we'll just duplicate that. This will be on throw finished timer handle, and one more duplicate on holster finished timer handle. And we want to bring all of these in as getters and then clear their timer handles. So clear timer by handle. So we need to do 3 of these. 1, 2, 3. So on equip finished, on throw finished, and on holster finished. So that is a completely reset weapon state. Alrighty. So we'll compile and save. We can close that. So now where were we? We set the ragdoll, and then we reset state to right. Like so. Perfect. Okay, cool. Now we can go to on throw finished. I think we have everything. So, like I said, if true, we notify all clients of weapon drop. Perfect. Replicated to all server. Targets BP weapon base. It's reliable. Then we set current state to, you guessed it, dropped. When you throw it, it gets dropped. Then we reset its state. Then we need to create one more function. So depending if we're in the first or third person, we're going to want to update mesh visibility, and we'll put this under visuals. And so what we do in here is we go into a branch, that condition being we do a select object, select object, take the return value and check if it's equal to first person mesh. And object A is going to be the third person mesh. Object B is going to be the, oh, sorry, I got that backwards. It's going to be another function. B select A is going to be get current state and check if it is equal, double equal to dropped. So if it's dropped, it'll be the third person mesh, so you'll see it in third person. Otherwise, it'll be whatever's relevant. So we need to create that function, which will be function get relevant. How you spell it? I can't remember. Relevant weapon mesh. This is a pure function. It's also visuals. It does have an output though, which is going to be a skeletal mesh reference. actually, sorry, a skeletal mesh component, since we're working with an actor with actual components, and that'll be our mesh out. And we're going to need a local variable called L underscore relevant mesh of type skeletal mesh component reference, and we take the return node and we return that, but not before we do some fun stuff. First of all, let's create, we haven't created this yet, let's create a variable called owning pawn, which will be of type BP base character. This will be rep notify, it'll be transient. So let's compile and save while we're at it. And we're gonna need to go back to our helpers, our BPM helper macros. So we have our to sequence here. We are gonna need a 3 and sequence. So add new macro 3 and sequence. So let's see if I remember how to make one of these. We take in an execution. So execute, and we output true and false. And we put a boolean in case we need to work off of it. B is true. And then we need 3 booleans in. B in 1, B in 2, B in 3. Put this out a ways. Create a local boolean, and that is our output. And we assign a value of both true and false. Assign the value, we make literal bool of true, and we do another one that's false. We assign again to our local variable the false. False connects to false, the true connects to true, and then we do 3 branches, 1, 2, 3, and their conditions hook up, and we connect the trues up to the inputs, and if they're all true, then they go to the true input, otherwise all the falses go to false. Alrighty, so we'll save that, Control S. We'll go back to our weapon base. And so we start with a 3 and sequence. And so we bring in rather our owning pawn. And we check, we make sure, is he valid? Is there an actual character carrying this weapon or using this weapon in whatever way? We check, is it locally controlled, this pawn? And the third one that we check is, are we in third person? So remember our helper function, so be in third, or sorry, is car in third person, right? It's been so long I can't remember what I called my functions. So we check all 3 of those conditions. And And actually, it's make sure we're not in third person. So add a not there, not boolean. So if true, we set the relevant mesh, our local variable here. Oh, false, we'll set it to. If true, we set it to the first person mesh. Otherwise, we set it to the third person mesh. Like so, and then we simply just return. So that one's done. That's here. So we can compile and save. And I totally forget what we were doing now. I believe it was update mesh visibility. So yeah, B was get relevant weapon mesh. Perfect. All right. So after all that, we go into our branch. If true, so basically this branch is first person relevant? Relevant. I really can't spell that. If so, then we want to make sure the owner doesn't see the weapon. So set owner no see on the third person mesh and set that to true. And we also want to take our current state and check if it is equal double equal enum to equipping. And it's equal to equipping, and B is holstered. Or is not holstered. Like so, that maze. And we take that output condition to set visibility of the first person mesh. Set visibility, first person mesh. There we go. So that sets whether third or first person mesh should be seen. And then we set only owner C on the first person mesh to true. And this should propagate to children as well. That way the interaction volume still works. Alrighty. So that one is good. So what this whole part does is if the first person mesh is relevant, then hide the third person mesh from the owner and only show the first person mesh if it's not holstered or if it's being equipped currently from the holster. Whether that be the back of a character or an actual side holster or whatever. If false, however, though, we need to check if the third person mesh is relevant. Then all we do is we simply show the third person mesh and we hide the first person mesh. So if false, then we set owner no C on the third person mesh to false. We set visibility on the first person mesh to false. Make sure it propagates to children. And we set visibility of the third person mesh to true, and should propagate the children. Alrighty, so that's the inverse. It's inversely, if third person mesh is relevant, then just show it and hide the first person mesh. So that one is done. So we can compile and save, update mesh visibility, close. So I believe that one was for on throw finished. So after we reset the state, then we update mesh visibility. And then we do a to and sequence, and we check if this weapon has authority or not. Has authority. And we also check, should be easier to go get game mode and cast to BP game mode. And I don't think I created this variable yet. Get weapon, nope. So we need to go to our game mode as well. You can see how interconnected all this stuff is, but by doing so you only need to set it in one, maybe two places, and it goes through all the classes and sets everything up. So you can change the entire game without having to go through all the classes. And it's hard work at first, but it makes creating whatever game you want in the end absolutely just so much easier. So we need to create a variable or a variable called weapon stay time. It's going to be of type float. It's going to be editable. It's going to be config gameplay. Or we'll go config gameplay weapons. It doesn't need to be replicated. However, if we compile, its default value should be, come on, somewhere around, how long would you want weapons to stay on the ground? Probably about 30 seconds. Otherwise, you might run into memory leaks, but you can obviously adjust that. That should be editable. Thought I said that. So we'll compile and save that. We can go back to our weapon base. We can get weapon stay time, and we want to check if it is, I'll have to bring this back. If it is greater than 0, and if it is, then we need to set its lifespan to that length. So if true, so basically if you throw the weapon on the ground, then as long as we have the authority and the weapon stay time is greater than 0, then we set the lifespan to whatever weapon stay time is set to. If false, however, then all we do, well, after that, regardless, we do an is valid check on the owning pawn. We make sure there's an actual character, or player rather, whatever you want to call it. So it just goes back into there if false. So we take the owning pawn, And let's see, weapon. Nope, we're gonna need one more. We need a few more functions in here yet. So on our base character, we need I don't think I created this yet. Weapons. Nope. So create a function called onWeaponDropped. And this will be under weapons. And it'll take an input, which will be our BP weapon base, which will be our dropped wep. We'll go. Now we did our set and get, but we didn't do a clear. We're gonna need that as well. So create a new function. Actually, it's the same as this one, so we can just duplicate it for now. So just duplicate this, and we'll call this oh, come on, clear weapon from holsters. And I just realized there's an update for 4.10 that's out, which I've been waiting for very patiently, so I'm going to try to get this finished as soon as we get back to our original function. So yeah, so what we need to do is create another function, as I was trying to do, clear weapon from holsters. Oh, I already created that. Never mind. Okay, on weapon dropped. No, I did not create that. I created that in the wrong place. That should be something else. I accidentally created clear weapon from holsters as a duplicate of get holstered weapon. So get holstered weapon is correct. Clear weapon from holsters is not. Luckily, this is an easy function. We take in our base weapon, so BP weapon base reference. This, we'll just go wep and get rid of this one. And all we do is an is valid on the weapon, and we'll do a rewrote. We will so we're gonna need get inv slot type. Then we want to get holstered weapon, and we want to check if the weapon in is equal to that. And we also want to take this inv slot type, rewrote it, and we want to do a switch statement and bring the return node over. We'll do a branch. So if it's valid, we go into this branch, the condition being this, obviously. Let's see if we can't bring this back a bit. So if true, we go into the switch statement based on its type. None, we do nothing. We actually don't need a return node. We simply set all these. So melee, we set melee. Secondary, we set secondary. Primary, we set primary. And special, we set special. Bing, bang, boom. So, whoa. comment that if a weapon is holstered, clear its slot variable. Alright, so we can compile that. Now that's right. So that is clear weapon from holsters, set, get. Okay, perfect. Set. Yeah, we're still working on that. I can't remember where I left off when I ran out of memory there. I guess it was in the weapon base, I assume. On this function, on throw finished. So we needed on weapon dropped to continue on the weapon base here. So we have to do that one is what I was looking for. So what we do is we clear all weapon, clear weapons from holsters. That should not be peer. I don't know why I made that peer. Must have been because I accidentally duplicated it, so that should not be peer. On weapon drop clear, weapon from holsters. Alright, now we're good. On that weapon will be the dropped weapon. We also want to take this and reroute it. We want to check if it is equal to our equipped weapon. If so, we go into a branch. So we plug that condition in and our execution wire. And so if true, we do a switch has auth. Switch auth. So only on authority do we set our equipped weapon. And then we need more functions. We switch to that actual weapon, so I am going to create let's see here. Just gonna duplicate pickup weapon. Switch to weapon. Let's open that up. What are we working on here? I don't even, these ones. Just gonna get rid of these other ones. Give me some room here. Alright, switched weapon. Let's get rid of this crap. Oh, switched weapon isn't even finished. Or what a pickup weapon isn't even finished. None of these are. You can see how interconnected they are. So we need slot to switch to, which will be our wep inventory slot, and we need a boolean, which is b was replicated. Was this switch replicated or not? So this goes into a branch. Its condition being the slot to switch to, we get holstered weapon. We check if it is valid in the peer function way. B was replicated. We should reroute that because we're gonna need it. Yeah, let's bring this up. And we're gonna need slot to switch to as well, so might as well bring that up here. So this goes into another branch. So if true, it goes into there. False, we do nothing. If true, we go into a to and sequence. And one is, first of all, is our weapon equipped valid? So we do an is valid peer. And 2 is, and we're also going to need a not boolean on there. 2 is, do we even have this? Can holster. No, we need another function. Oh, yeah. So we have to go to our weapon base and we need to create a quick little function called can holster. And this one at least is pretty easy, and it's peer, and its output is a boolean. B is holsterable. And this one's pretty simple. We just check. We get our current state. We check if it's equal to enum to idle, and we make sure it's equipped. B is equipped. So we need to create that variable. So create a variable called B is equipped. This is a boolean. It's transient, and by default it's false. So that'll be fine. So plug that into there. So that's our condition. And that is that. Compile and save, and we can go to our base character and we can take our wep equipped and is holsterable. Okay, I just created this function. How come it's not? Oh, can holster. Right. It outputs that can holster. There we go. So that's our second in our to and sequence, which goes into another branch. If false, we go into this branch, and its condition is if it's not valid, or obviously if it's not holsterable, coming from the to and sequence. If true though, then we need to go to our event graph, and we need to do, where did we add the other one? I don't even know. I'll add it in custom events and damage. This needs a lot of love and attention. Custom event, whoops. New custom event. Oh, come on. Custom event add called client switch to weapon. It's multicast. It's reliable. It has 2 inputs: a boolean called bSkipOwner and an e_wep inventory slot, which is slot to switch to, and we do a switch auth. And on the remote, since this is client, we go into a branch. The condition being bSkipOwner, and as well as a not. We want to check if they're locally controlled. Is locally controlled, since it's client, not server. If true, then we switch to weapon. We call the actual function, and the slot to switch to plugs into there, and B was replicated is true. And while we're here, we might as well just do the server real quick, even though we don't need it right now. We'll just do the servers, or gosh, I gotta create custom event called server switch to weapon, and all this does is just call switch to weapon, and it needs that input as well. Slot to switch to, and it executes on server, and it's reliable. Actually, sorry, it doesn't need to be reliable. And that goes in there, and I gotta get rid of that backslash because that bugs me. And it is replicated. Compile, save. So, if true, we call client switch to weapon. We also call this, if this is true, let's see, how can we make that a little more clear? Something like that, maybe. If false, however, and this is going to connect up with this false, so we wrote that down like so. We need to create a new variable. I don't think we have it. Called desired equipped weapon slot, which is of type EWEP inventory slot. It's replicated. Its category is under weapons. And if we compile, we want it to be primary by default. And we also want it to be 0 loaded at default, so make it transient. And so we set that after we client switch to weapon to primary. And if all that fails, we just set it to we set the desired equipped weapon slot to the slot to switch to, which is coming all the way from back there. So I'll rewrote this up here to keep it straightish. That'll work for today. Close enough. And then lastly, and I don't think we have this, so we'll need one more, because we'll need equip. Yeah, no, we need to create one more function again. We're gonna have like practically the whole thing done by the time this is over. We need one more function called equip desired weapon, and this one is gonna go under weapons as well. And so we do, first of all, an is valid. And we check our equipped weapon. Why is stored teams data in there? That should totally not be. Default. All right. We take our desired equipped weapon slot, we get holstered weapon, we check if it is valid, pure form, so whatever weapon's equipped there is valid. We also want to check if it's not equal to the currently equipped weapon. Because let's see here, bring that up. If it is valid, we go into a branch, and this branch's condition is an AND boolean with 3 pins. So I'm going to add a pin if I can. On add pin So first we check if it's valid, then we check if it's not equal to the currently equipped weapon, and then we check if we can holster. And if true, then we take our equipped weapon. Let's do one more reroute through here. And we consider it. I think we'll need one more function. Yep. So now we got to go back to our base weapon, add a function called onHolster. So this is events. So we just go into a branch and we check if it is pending holster as its condition. If true, we do nothing. If false, we need a new function. We stop fire, which is also in events, and we do a switch has auth. And let's see here. On the remote, we go to server stop fire. So we'll need our event graph. So we'll create a custom event. Server stop fire, which simply calls stop fire. So we can go back to stop fire. So the remote calls stop fire server. The authority just goes into a branch, as does the remote after it's finished that. And I totally forgot to set replicated to server, run on server, executes on server, reliable. Perfect. In this condition, we need a new variable. B wants to fire. So does the gun want, is the gun basically being asked to fire? This is a transient value. We plug that into there. And we set B wants to fire to false. And we're gonna have like 600 more functions just to get back to where we started. So I'm gonna do this in 2 or 3 parts, but at least we'll have the entire weapon system done. So we're just powering through it, but I'm starting to get tired of going through loops of functions, and I'm starting to get lost in my reference material. So I'm gonna have to take a step back and finish this another time. And we're also getting to the 2-hour mark, and that's a very long video and cuts viewership down. So thanks for watching from the team here at UnrealTech.net, division of BlenderTek.com. If you learned something, please like it, subscribe as well. We take donations. We're on social media, and the links on your screen. If you dislike this video for some reason, please tell us why. So we'll see you next time. Remember, create your way.